meeting at 6:32.
You're recording.
All right, so I'll open up the Bridgewater Finance Committee Budget Subcommittee at 6:32 p.m.
Okay, very good. Matt, the February 2nd minutes from last week, I don't have those quite completed yet. So we're gonna have to just look over that, pass over that till next week.
All right, motion to adjourn then?
So legislation referred, we have one order that was referred to us at the council meeting, the acceptance of non-recurring revenue order FY 21030. It's
Yeah,
kind
motion
of,
to adjourn.
that's the payment received by the Department of Correction for 292,000. It's not really part of the budget. It's revenue that we don't factor in because you never know if it's going to be non-recurring. So
Let's hope it is.
hope it is. So it was motion by Matt, second by me, Dennis. Any discussion?
None.
Matt?
Yes.
Yes. Dennis? Yes. Motion passes 2-0. Next item on the agenda is the FY 22 budget resolution. Since we have, does the finance committee have any business they want to get out? That's right, you're a subcommittee, you're not the.
Yeah.
you're not
Yep.
the-
Yeah, so we'll see these items, yeah, at our full meeting on the 16th.
All right, so we can go into the budget resolution and then have a discussion about the budget. And then there was one other item I put on about this billing of school, the billing practice for the school district. We'll talk the budget and finance, we'll talk about that afterwards. So we'll go to the budget resolution, which is R 21003, which was sponsored back in November by Councilor Wood. And I know the finance committee's budget subcommittee has been working on revising it, making some recommendations. So I'll turn it over. I believe that Tony has a draft of it or whatever he wants to present tonight. So
Well, we had a document that unfortunately wasn't issued to you till later. I apologize, Mr. Gallagher. The Budget and Finance Subcommittee got a copy of it as well. So some of the things that have come up through the discussion, we've worked into this. I've sat down with the town manager and we were going to give it back to both groups to begin to, dissect it a little bit, make sure to capture some of the things that they wanted to see, answer questions, and then make any modifications as you guys see fit.
okay, so will we get will the Budget and Finance Committee get a copy of that, or did it just?
It was sent you, it just was sent you later today. I think you got it in your mailbox. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
That was, I was curious about. So Tony, you drafted that?
So the way the process worked, I met with Nate and his group and we got some feedback, and then we met, the finance committee met, and I got some additional feedback. And Michael and I took it back to Michael, and Michael and I both had gotten some feedback. At certain council meetings, there was references to, I think, issues of maintenance of buildings, issue of, maintenance and repairs of roadways, things of that nature. So we incorporated what we were hearing into the document, and now it's in a draft form that Michael and I looked at, and we wanted to bring it back to you and to the finance committee to take a look-see.
Okay, yeah, it looks good. I love the document myself personally. The exhibits, are those to be drafted?
Yes.
Okay.
Tony, this is Nathan. Real quick, like you said, we did get a kind of last minute. Could you maybe just highlight some of the changes
Sure.
that you were speaking of to us?
Yeah. I'd be glad to. Do you want me to share the document on the screen, or do you just want to read from what you have? How would you like?
John, did you receive, I received yeah, I did receive I'm just pulling it up on my iPhone now, so. Matt, you have seen it, you've read through it briefly?
Yeah.
And I don't know if Sean has or not, but
Then I can just point to the, on.
I just got it.
Okay.
so
So
Tony,
how-
I would
how would-
suggest if you go over it, just go over some of the highlights, Tony.
I will.
And we can continue this discussion if that's okay for our next week's meeting, because we're meeting again on the 16th.
That'd be fantastic.
And bring back any ideas
Yep.
that we have. So, all right, go ahead, Tony.
So, yep, under the sound financial condition, stability is defined as, we added capital solvency to highlight some of the, what we think are the concerns that we've heard, that we have to make sure we assess all of our assets, maintain them, and come up with a replacement plan for those. So we want to keep that forefront in our mind. So that's was highlighted there.
Hey, Tony, sorry to interrupt. Who did the email come from? Because I don't remember seeing it, but that doesn't mean I didn't.
Josh,
God,
Thank you. Sorry.
so that was the only change there. All those other items that were on that first page are from last year. Under financial policies and guidelines, I think where some additional information was put in there is under 2A. Again, the unreserved fund balance or free cash for 22 will be targeted at 1.75% of the 21 operating budget and used only for one-time expenditures as capital equipment, unexpected or extraordinary expenses such as unbudgeted snow and ice removal expenses, or to meet the stabilization policy objectives. So the example I would use is that's approximately $1 million. And if we were to share a portion of that capital surplus, to our capital fund to meet our ongoing capital requirements, and share a portion of that with the school to meet their capital requirements, meet our OPEB commitment that we've made over the last few years of $100,000, and to meet any sick leave buyback liabilities, we would eat that $1.1 million, I guess it works out to be 1.75 up very quickly. So the town manager and I talked about this. We want to specify how that would be allocated in those areas and target that 1.75%.
Is that where we on for this fiscal year? What's the current percent now?
Okay, it was adjusted last resolution to 1.5.
May have to do that again.
Yeah,
Tony,
yes.
Tony, I'm sorry, just maybe since Eric doesn't have it, maybe you can share your screen so he can read along, maybe if anybody else doesn't have it.
Nate, I have it now.
Oh, you do?
Sorry.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, yeah.
great.
I thought it came from Ann, so I was looking for an email from Ann, but no, I have it.
Okay.
So I was just referring to this paragraph here. Already covered it.
Yep.
I won't cover it again. We got into more specifics under expenditures B. We started to really point out, and we want to point out with the exhibits that you will get, is 2 exhibits. One exhibit that's going to show how would plan on allocating that 1.75%. And also, we would have reference to how are we funding certain portions of these capital items. So for the last 4 or 5 years, all these capital items for machinery, equipment, and vehicles, software, and some building improvements, they've all been funded by our capital stabilization fund. So without us having reserves at the end of the year, adequate enough to maintain our capital assets, as I just described, we'd have to find another funding mechanism in order to stay up with the number of police vehicles we need, the equipment and updates to some of our technology that will occur, as a couple of examples. Plus, we have done some repairs to HVAC units, which have been the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 range. You guys have that capital report I did to council about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and you can see from that how we funded the major portion of the capital plan, and that is with our reserves. So you can see how number 3D and 4B are tightly connected.
But you're
Go
saying
ahead,
that
Dennis.
the 1.75% is about $1 million of the
$1,000,001. Yep,
$1.1 million of the fiscal 22 operating budget.
correct.
So let's back up another past fiscal year.
Mhm.
What was our
Target?
what was our actual certified free cash at the close of the last fiscal year? It was well over $1 million.
Oh, yes. Oh, so the
So the-
free cash for FY20 was $2.2 million.
Right. So, I mean, I understand that number, and it ties your hands when it comes to the revenue portion of it, which is why I don't see the need that it needs to go back to 1.75. I think it could stay at 1.5, and you'd probably still meet the way over the $1 million in available, well, in certified free cash. We know there's a lot of uncertainty out there. I know we've been saying this for 6 or 7 years, and a few of those years I didn't agree with it, but now I do, because I think we're heading into that. Because we're very grateful that the state budget is going to give us additional monies in local aid, and I don't quite know how the schools fared out, but that's the number I'm focused on.
Sure.
But one of the things that I think we're going to see this year is the snow and ice deficit is certainly going to be a big number this year compared to the last couple years.
Yep.
We need to pay those bills.
Yep. So that's why it's out there. Last year it was out there at 1.75. The both finance committee, I think in your committee, Mr. Gallagher wanted it at 1.5, and I think that's where it ended up. Okay.
So how, Tony, did it get back to 1.75? Was that between you and Mr. Dutton?
No,
Or-
This is a proposal.
It's every year we have to adjust it back to,
well, it's a proposal.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
One thing that's going to help us, we will have our full capital improvement program and a targeted list of capital items that we'll be looking for, either funding from what we have available on our capital stabilization fund now, or from our free cash that gets certified at the end of FY21. So we're really trying to get these documents tight so that they're in the proper sequencing, so you can be informed as to what exactly we would be doing, whether it's $1 million, whether it's $800,000, whether it's $2 million, what capital would be funded by the surplus. Okay. And then I think those are the main items. And then the town manager pointed to his budget objectives right there down below.
Hey, Tony, just a quick question before we move on. And I know we spent a lot of time as a team talking about new equipment, aged equipment, and really old equipment. But the one thing we don't talk about a lot as a finance committee and, a subcommittee is what we can do with our existing fleet to prolong the asset lives, right? So I continually hear we got to buy another 18-wheeler or a 10-wheeler or whatever it is. And I'm not trying to go off topic here, but since we're talking about it,
Mhm.
is a budget resolution, I think it makes sense a little bit to just kind of talk about some of the maintenance either we have or haven't budgeted for in the past that will help us with some of these things, because I always feel like it's kind of last minute and our backs are up against the wall and we need to buy X, Y, or Z, whether it's,
Well,
2 new ambulances or
yeah.
2 cruisers or whatever it may be. There's not a lot of talk about like,
Mhm.
how do we put a number in the budget that helps us move along through the years and prolong the asset life. So I apologize if we go off topic for
No,
having.
I think maybe that's not captured in here well enough, because what we're going to have in this capital plan, which also is going to feed your operating budget, is we're going to have a fleet schedule of all of our equipment and vehicles, what the age of those vehicles are, and what sort of replacement schedule they would be on. I think over the last 5 years, what we've done is taken vehicles that were in the highway department, and quite frankly, if you and I went to a local dealer to have our sticker put on there so I could get on the road with those vehicles, they wouldn't have got on the road.
Yep.
Okay, so we're just coming out of that. So to your point, absolutely, there should be a good fleet schedule. We should look at the life of these investments. We're talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases, and what is the maintenance program that we have for maintaining those vehicles? I would suspect that once you see what that schedule looks like, you're going to feel pretty comfortable with the vehicles themselves. At the same time, when we're talking about maintenance, what's our maintenance for our buildings? Well, our facilities director right now is putting together an entire program, at least capturing all of our assets, inventorying our assets, visiting the buildings, and we're starting to look at what that's going to look like. The town manager in his initial budget, preliminary budget, asked for $350,000 to be put into his building maintenance line so that he can start to address some of the ongoing maintenance issues once we get a full building maintenance plan. So I think we're in that phase right now. And if you'd like this document to speak a little bit more to that, making sure we have maintenance programs for our vehicles so that we can extend their useful life, our vehicles and equipment, and also our buildings so that we can extend the useful life of, let's say, doors, windows, or what have you, or our mechanicals. I think we'd be happy to help by putting that in there for you.
Yeah, no, that'd be perfect. And again, I'd probably speak to my background a little bit more than some other things, but buying new equipment's a lot more expensive than
Mhm.
buying state auction 2-year-old equipment and having a very skilled mechanic on staff to take care of that. So I just, in the past, we haven't talked a lot about it, and I know we've come a long way. So I just want to keep it top of mind.
Good.
Thank
I
you, Tom.
appreciate that. And I'll talk to the town manager so we can wordsmith it and get it back to you guys so that you can incorporate that or not incorporate that into this document.
Thanks, Tony.
Any other questions for Tony regarding the budget resolution proposal?
Yeah.
Don't at this time.
I guess what we'll do, I'll speak to my 2 members, is that we'll take a look at it over the next few days, or next week until the 16th. So we have another joint meeting on the 16th. If I could just ask Councilor George and Councilor Rushton to look at it and come back on the 16th with suggestions, and we'll take a vote to approve it, recommend it. Then it goes back to, I think it goes back to the council too. Goes back to the full council for adoption. Once it comes out.
Yeah, on the 23rd, I believe, Dennis.
Oh, is it the 23rd? We don't meet next week?
Oh,
What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? All right, the 23rd is our next meeting. It'll have to be 6 o'clock because we have a council meeting at 7.
Well,
Or,
no, I think on the budget calendar, I think that Tony has the town council passing the resolution on the 23rd.
It's having it submitted. That's something I wanted to bring up and give to
Okay.
you guys today, Dennis. My technical difficulties are stopping me from doing that. I'm going to email you a tentative calendar so we can be in sync with one another. Is it possible for you guys to meet in a joint meeting again with the finance committee just to hash out any changes you want to make? Or,
Well, we're gonna do that on the 16th, I believe, Tony.
well, I think that's what Dennis was speaking to, right?
we do have, yeah, it is in the schedule for a joint meeting on the 16th.
Yep.
Where we could hash it out, vote on it, and then it goes to the council for the following Tuesday.
Yeah.
23rd.
Yeah, we're on the same page. Yep.
Okay.
That's where I was too.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to budget FY22 discussion items. Last week, Tony, I know you weren't here, but I'm sure you're aware the town manager presented his preliminary budget to us. Actually, the night before the council meeting, we got it. So the finance committee subcommittee has it. The council has it, and obviously the budget and finance committee has it. So the revenue projections are, pretty tight. I just have a question regarding the snow and ice removal. It appears, based on what the town manager presented,
Mhm.
is that at that point, and I know it's gone up, at that point, he was projecting a $500,000 deficit in the snow and ice budget.
Yep.
That was projected, so it could still be under that, or it could be over that now, I don't know, but we know it's gonna go over that. Why wouldn't we use stabilization funds to pay that debt off? Why would we want to use the revenue, the projected revenue in the budget to do that?
Well, we have as a practice planned on and have used part of our revenue stream each year to fund the allowable deficit, because snow and ice is the only allowable deficit. We haven't gone into the stabilization to do so. There's been discussion as to whether or not that's something we should be planning for in another way. It's just what we've done as a practice. If we were to change that, that would make monies available, but that would then change our entire practice. We'd have to say every year that there's a snow and ice deficit, we're going to go to the stabilization fund to fund it.
Well, it could be on a case-by-case basis. I mean, some years, as you
Well-
know, back in 2015,
Yeah,
the state allowed us to pay
Yeah.
that debt over 3 budget cycles, so.
I can give you my thought process on it. So I have, what I've tried to bring to all of this is a very disciplined, consistent approach. I don't know that this year, based on what I'm seeing, would warrant us to change our practice. I feel the first revenue numbers that were provided, as they should have been, are conservative. I believe there's some room that we're going to see. If we had a $800,000 snow and ice deficit, I would say then that would be above the average. Our average is between 400,000 and 500,000, except for, like you said, 2015. Then I would be recommending, because it's an exception outside of the rule or the average, that we look to fund that through a one-time funding source. But as a rule, this is how the revenue stream has flowed. And to begin to make adjustments can sometimes cause confusion and or lack of clarity around what's the criteria to determine whether you go to the stabilization fund for the snow and ice deficit or you don't. Again, my belief is if we have one of those banner years and we spent $1 million, that's a time to look at it. But if it's at the time that we checked the deficit, we were about $120,000 in deficit. Now we've had 2 snowstorms since then. A snowstorm is typically, and this is based on Ron's estimates he's given me, is between $35,000 and $40,000 a snowstorm. Okay. So I would still recommend to the town manager that we follow the practice that we have unless there's something unforeseen that occurs in snow and ice like we saw in 2015.
I just think we need to have that discussion, I think, because it would be a shame that if we budgeted a deficit of 500,000 and it was only 300,000. And
Well, we're going to make an adjustment. We'll make an adjustment before the budget.
because it would free up some monies that we could apply towards other programs that are desperately needed. So I personally, and if it was only at 125,000 and we had 2 storms since, and it's probably at 200 now, 250 now. I mean, I'm not going to project that, but we'll get more. We know that. I just think that's certainly a justifiable use of the stabilization fund to pay off that debt. I do.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the preliminary budget? Trying to find my notes. Here we go. On the motor vehicle excise, just out of curiosity, last year I got my bill in February.
Mm-hmm.
This year I got it in like January 10th. When you talk about commitments, are commitments set certain periods of the year you send out commitments? Or, I mean, I got mine like a month earlier.
That's because the registry has changed their billing practices.
So you
And so
sent, yeah.
they're getting the information to us much sooner.
Is this the biggest commitment, the one that just went out?
Yeah, $2.8 million. It's down this commitment's down 4% from last year's commitment.
I'm done with questions for tonight.
Tony, quick question, just piggybacking off Mr. Gallagher's point.
Mhm.
The stabilization fund and the snow, do we have 3 years every year to repay it, or is it just in bad years if the state gives us the ability to repay it in 3 years? Is it a special?
It's the latter. It's what you just described.
Thank you.
And sometimes if we have a really, really, really bad storm, we declare a state of emergency. Sometimes there's sometimes state money comes in, sometimes, but I don't expect that. We still got to pay for it and it just comes in later on, but.
Thank you.
Tony, just to clarify real quick, you said that the motor vehicle excise is down 4%, correct?
The large commitment is down 4% from last year.
Okay, thank you.
And how many commitments go out every year?
Well, now that we're doing it almost every month, and then they have a small commitment, they clean it up, you're talking 7. Every other month, I'm sorry. The big commitment is the one that would have just gone out.
And that's the one that's down 4%. The other ones, are they all down 4% or just the big one?
I was just keying on the large one because again, this is only the second year they've gone to every month commitments. So I'm doing the analytical work now. So one thing I can promise is before the final revenue numbers are done, which our goal is to have that ready by well, at least our second pass, which should be a solid pass 3-1. So I will be willing to go through all of my estimating methodologies and show some history over the last few years of motor vehicle excise permits, new growth, and so forth. So both bodies can be on the same page with at least the methodologies that I've been incorporated.
I mean, the new growth was encouraging. I mean, that's a pretty big number.
Yes.
And I know based on based on the preliminary proposal, it was still 800 grand out of whack. So.
Mhm. And that did have the town manager's priorities, which he's been asked to present, especially around building maintenance.
Tony, just again, quick question, and I think it piggybacks off Dennis's point. And I don't know how you get to this, so I apologize. But as we look at the budget as a whole, right, there are obvious COVID impacts. There's going to be some COVID impacts to our taxes on food and beverage. There's going to be some taxes on, and I think you would say that new car sales, excise tax is probably down because of COVID. I would expect that new home sales are up a little bit. Is there an exercise that's been run to kind of give us just an idea of here's your pluses and here's your minuses as we walk into this budget season? Because I think we did a really good job last year when we sat down at the final budget, as tough as it was to kind of say, here's where we think state aid is going to be. And we were pretty close. And so I'm just curious to see if and when you think you'll have a read on that.
So the December reports that were produced showed you some comparisons regarding the percent that we're collecting on some of our major billings, motor vehicle, excise tax. You also saw our collections on our real estate and personal property taxes. And it also showed a comparison, what I call the major core drivers of our local receipts, which are motor vehicle excise tax, your meals, your room tax, your penalties and interest on taxes, your licenses and permits. And if you look at those, I think bottom line is the economy as it relates to the impact on meals tax and room tax. Meal tax particularly, we didn't see the reduction that we thought we might. So we're seeing a surplus above our budget for FY21 already. Motor vehicle excise tax, we were very conservative because we had no idea what was going to happen. And although we're down 4% in our commitment, we're over budget in our collections. So that's a good sign. In the area of penalties and interest on taxes, they happen to be up. And the reason they're up is our receivable balances and our uncollectible are actually rising a little bit. We envision putting into tax title from FY 20 taxes. Our last check was around 700,000. The year before, we only put about $250,000. So we are seeing some slow pay. The billings are there, but the slow pay and people's ability to pay will impact our undesignated fund balance at the end of the year. So those are some key highlights. So when I do sit with you before the 3-1, I can have a session where I actually walk through all of the estimates that we have, walk through the results of the first quarter, and also what we see trending in those key areas for January and February. I think you'll get an idea of why the numbers are what they are. The governor's number, the fact that he came right out with a number that is funding us with an increase over FY 21 is encouraging because we can use that, and that actually helped with the first preliminary numbers that the town manager put out. But I really would like to hold that to the exact exercise that you're talking about. Let's really go through these key numbers. You guys can see the historical trends. Matter of fact, we did some work over the last couple of weeks I have historical trend numbers in all these areas since FY11. I have some historical trend numbers for the school and what they got for Chapter 70 since 2011. So I really like to give the context again, and then where do we see the economy going over the next 6 to 9 months. I think it's going to be those who are suffering will have a hard time paying. Those new car sales are slightly down, but not as much as we had anticipated.
No, fair enough. And I do think it's very important as we get into budget season, though, to have exactly what you just talked about, right? Is
Mhm.
a lot of our budget is based on exactly what we know we're going to collect. And I think we've kind of shrunken the uncertainties in the past. And I want to make sure that we're very clear on what those uncertainties are, so that we can forecast that going forward. So appreciate it. Thank you, Tom.
And I might even bring our assessor in. She's done, and her staff has done some yeoman's work. The reason we have a new growth figure in our preliminary budget of 800,000 is because we had some estimates done by the end of October this year. And that has to do with how we've ramped up collecting our data so that we can in fact do a better estimating, even with our 2-1 budget. We know we really feel that by the end of this month, I spoke with her. She feels we would, what we normally called our 415 free new growth number, we think we're going to have that available 3-1 this year.
Thank you, Tom.
Hey, Tony,
Yeah.
looking at the medical benefit, the 4.1, is that contractual, or is that just an anticipated increase that you see? Is that the contractual amount, or is that the total amount, I should say?
No, the 4.1 is a combination of contractual. I think that's the salaries and benefits and number, or is that just benefits? I don't have the document in front of me, Mr. George.
Yeah, it's the medical. You've got medical, life, workers' comp, all
Yeah.
that at
Yes.
6.7,
Yeah.
which I know some of it, like workers' comp, we got to pay.
Yeah. So
Medical
that,
benefit at
Yep.
4.1. I'm just curious, is that net contractual, or is that just something that you see as a total increase?
that's the increase we'd be estimating. Last year, we estimated around 7. It came in at 2 plus, like 2.5%. So we pulled the number down this year because I've been looking at the claims reports coming from the county, and we're really doing very well with our claims reports. So what that means is they could see they're seeing right now more surplus this year as compared to last year. And what they'll do is each year they'll use some of their surplus to offset the rate increases. So that's why I've moved that number down to like 4.1%.
Thank you.
Tony, I have a quick question for you. We touched on the schools, and I happened to watch Governor Baker give his press conference on the budget proposal. And he brought up the Student Opportunity Act, which I honestly don't know a whole bunch about, but he made the comment that the first year of the Student Opportunity Act will be fully funded. And then he said after that, it'll be phased in over 7 years. Do you
Okay.
think, I don't know how much you know about it. I'm sure we can expand on this in another format, but do we, would there be future exposure to us? If they don't fully fund it in years 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
Well, here's the thing. Their Chapter 70 number for this year, even the governor's, the increase isn't. I wish I could. Again, technology. I apologize. I can't pull up my work computer right now. I believe it was less than 2%. Was the increase to revenue to our regional school district.
2.5, I thought I heard, but.
Yeah, if you look at all the different buckets, the Chapter 70, I don't know that it was 2.5, but let's say it was 2.5. That's certainly below the 3.72 that they mentioned at the meeting we had back in January. So you can see right away there's an eroding of the revenue coming from the state against what they need. As as it relates to that particular piece, now that there's been a statement that something's happening there, now we'll investigate what that something really is. And we'll have to reach out to the schools to make sure we get a handle on how that is going to impact the FY22 budget. I am not sure at this time.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that he did mention too, that a lot of the additional state Chapter 70 money will be focused on underperforming school districts too.
Sometimes it hurts to be doing well.
Right, it's a good thing. Okay, thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Any other questions regarding the FY22 budget? So we will, the Budget and Finance Committee has one other item on our agenda. I don't know if you guys want to adjourn or whatnot, but we'll continue the joint meeting on February 16th.
Stick around. This is a good one.
This is a good one.
I'd like to know what this one is.
This is Tony, under D2 the second bullet point is billing practices for the school district on town-owned buildings. This question came up over a year ago, well over a year ago, because Bill Wood was chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee when this was brought up, and there was a concern brought up at that time regarding practice for billing the school district for work that is conducted on town-owned buildings, i.e. backflow testing, for example. Bill, this question was raised in the past about well over a year ago, and there doesn't seem to be an answer to why the district.
Yeah,
but not so much that they shouldn't be, but the question really was, is this practice carried through other departments when services like that are performed for them? That was the question posed over a year ago, and I guess it hasn't been answered.
well, if we got something in writing, I'm not familiar. I do remember the discussion, and I thought that while the agreement, the regional agreement was being reworked, that would have been addressed through the regional agreement discussions. I do remember putting out the question. I wondered what Rainham's practice was, and maybe we could get together and figure out whether there's a fair and consistent methodology in doing that. It's really, I haven't been in the negotiations for the regional agreement, so.
So Tony, I don't mean to interrupt, but I have been. There's the agreement itself does not go into that type of detail. It is much more, forgive the term, of a grander scale. Like, for instance, the assessment formula refers to the Act of 1993.
Oh,
And it doesn't go any farther than that. And,
okay.
you know, there's also talk about just allocation of expenses.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see, at least in this draft, that anyone's going to go narrow and deep in regards to, you know, what those allocation of expenses are, how they're calculated, how they're billed. I think it's more around the practice of doing it than it is in a regional agreement. And it's a good question how Rainham does it too. I have no clue.
Yeah.
But I think, and you probably, with a lot of other people, the agreement itself is not that detailed per se.
No. Okay. So then what you're suggesting then, if you're part of that group, is anything like that would just be a practice that in good faith, the regional school district and the town would sit down and try to work out. Is that
right? I mean, it's a question from the chairman of the school committee, and he's just asking it again. And Tony, it wasn't given to us as that we fell down. It was asked a year ago, haven't gotten any clarity.
Sure.
So now he's asking again. You know, can he just get a better explanation, or maybe revisiting, looking at that just to, you know, make sure it's a
I
good
will.
practice, or, things of
Yeah.
that nature.
Okay, I will certainly make sure it gets moved along and an answer is given.
Okay, I'll keep this on the agenda.
Fantastic.
So for future.
That's great.
For future meetings, so we don't forget about it.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Anything else on that issue? Any public comment? Is there anyone here from the public that wishes to comment on this meeting? I don't see any hands. Okay. We will meet again on February 16th at 6:30, right? 6:30?
Did we walk it? We're gonna do 6:30?
Yeah, I thought we had a council meeting, but we
Okay.
don't. This is our 3-week break.
Okay,
We don't meet till the 23rd.
yeah. I
So we
did
could do
give,
is 6:30 better or 6? I know 6:30 is something the finance committee's been used to.
yes,
so.
traditionally we have been meeting at 6:30.
Sure.
I did give him a heads up today that we might meet at 6 next Tuesday, but if we go back to 6:30, it'll be fine, I'm sure.
We'll do it at 6:30.
Okay.
Next week, okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the Budget and Finance Committee.
So moved.
Second,
Moved by Sean, seconded by Matt. Any discussion? Sean,
Yes.
Matt,
yes.
Dennis, yes. We are adjourned 3-0. See you in a week.
I'll entertain a motion from the Finance Committee Budget Subcommittee to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay,
Second.
Julie first, I got Eric second. I'll do a roll call real quick. Julie,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
and I vote aye. All right, I'll see everybody on the 16th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.